Hey guys, happy Monday. I apologize. I thought I had these already ready to go and meant to put these up last week. But these videos, I've got two that I'm going to throw, well, I think actually three I'm going to throw your way today. Go over a couple of pages in your note packets. So I realized today also that this goes with a page in your notes that apparently I did not tag and put up, but it is officially up now. So sorry about that. Okay, so getting into urban technology and what life is like at the turn of the century. Several things that are on this PowerPoint are going to be I'm trying to think. Quiz questions, sorry, are going to be quiz questions for this week, so just keep that in mind. Skyscrapers, we've got Louis Sullivan, who's going to be the architect of the first skyscraper. The quiz questions want to know that, and so Louis Sullivan, first skyscraper, and also the first skyscraper is 10 stories tall. That's another question to make sure that you remember. We've got Frank Wright, who's going to be the architect for bridges, like the first suspended bridges using steel cables, like the Brooklyn Bridge and also the Golden Gate Bridge in California. So these new bridges and skyscrapers, moving on to our very first. Now that we have electricity, having electric trolley cars. So all this new pieces of technology is really exciting. We're starting to pave the way and get away from having to walk or using horses and horse and carriages. Urban planning, trying to get away from these, concrete jungles and make sure that big cities like New York, Chicago, and all these others have places for you to go and actually be part of nature. Frederick Olmsted, who is going to be the design architect for Central Park in New York City. And fun fact, he's also the designer of the parks and forestry setup and gardens at Biltmore House in Asheville, North Carolina. So Frederick Olmsted is going to be known for establishing and setting up Central Park. Another big piece of technology is the Wright brothers. 1903, the Wright brothers are going to be credited with the first flight. So we know the very beginning of airplanes is also coming around. So all this is replacing horse and buggy and even getting faster than the train. Now we have airplanes in their infancy. And we'll talk about cars coming very shortly as well. So the Wright brothers will start in 1903 with their first flight. Doesn't go very far, doesn't go up very long, but again, it's baby steps. Airplanes will actually be used in the very first World War. And they'll be used for airmail and passenger transportation after that. So the very beginning of airplanes, the very beginning of photography for the people. Now, photography's actually been out ever since the Civil War times, but our technology is getting better. Everything's getting smaller and more compact, and we're able to mass produce it. The prices are getting lower. Just like when the very first PlayStation came out, it was really expensive. But as technology goes on and gets better, we can make things smaller, we can mass produce, we can drop the price. George Eastman giving us that first handheld camera, the Kodak Brownie coming out, Nikola Tesla coming up with the radio, and the radio being a mass-produced piece of public communication and entertainment. That's what you did. You went home and you listened to the radio. You ate dinner, you sat in the living room, kids played toys, dad read the newspaper, mom knitted, and everybody listened to the entertainment on the radio. News, sports, kids shows, soap operas, everything's on the radio. Public education, we're trying to encourage parents to send their kids to schools. We're starting up kindergarten. Originally, it was kind of a first through 8th grade. Most Americans could not afford to send their kids longer to school just because they needed somebody else to help earn some money. So only your wealthy upper class were going to what we consider high school level courses and then off to college. So pushing for children to be in education, the very beginnings of not just parks, but also playgrounds. Playgrounds were considered more of like an obstacle course, almost like a American Ninja Warrior kind of setup, not what we know today as slides and swings and things like that, but a lot of monkey bars and climbing activities. So the very beginning of pushing for higher education, again, it is your upper class that are going to college. We are also pushing for agricultural schools to open up in a lot of your sciences. Medical and business colleges are what you're going to see. And if you were a woman, the only thing that you could go to school for would be for either teaching or nursing. There were no other options as far as a college degree for women at the turn of the century. The Morrill Act of 1862 starts up agricultural schools like NC-A&T and NC State. So we're pushing for better agricultural education. We have new styles of art and literature. We have what we call the realism phase, where we're focusing on the realities of this turn of the century life. You've got great writers like Samuel Clemens, which most people know not as Samuel Clemens, but they know him as, oh my goodness, I can't even think of his name now. That's awful. He writes Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, but he goes by nom de plume. He doesn't actually go by Samuel Clemens. He goes by... That is awful. I cannot think of his name. That's terrible. It'll come to me. It'll come to me in a second. But a lot of these movies, Jack London's Call the Wild, which actually just came out as a movie. It was originally a book. It has Harrison Ford in it. It came out as a movie probably like 6-8 months ago, so you can actually watch that now. But his book Call the Wild comes out during this time period. You've got all these dime novels, and they're called dime novels because they're only worth a dime. That's what people are reading. The bicycle craze comes out. It was actually most popular with women during the turn of the century. It provided a way for them to be able to relax and enjoy some privacy, just jumping on their bike and going wherever they needed to go. The very beginning of soft drinks, Coca-Cola, the Hershey Candy Bar Company, sports, tennis becoming popular. But of course, America's favorite pastime is baseball. Here's a trivia question for you. What American sports team is going to be the very first to get going? And it's the Cincinnati Red Sox. Will be the first paid Major League Baseball team. They get started up in 1869. A lot of these baseball teams get started because they were playing baseball during the Civil War just for entertainment, to take their mind off things. So first paid major sports team, Cincinnati Red Sox. We got boxing. We got basketball, football. But football is only going to be popular as a college level sport. And it's actually, I think Notre Dame is the most popular of that. Ragtime music is the popular music. It's kind of a mixture of Dixieland blues and jazz. We've got the very beginning of motion picture. But what I do want you to remember about movies during this time period is the fact that they are all done through individual slides. They're black and white. Most of them are silent films. Maybe you've got piano music in the background, but silent films, black and white. Most of them are film strips that somebody's having to reel in the back. And again, how are we spending our money? We do have the very beginning of department stores. Kohl's and Macy's are the very beginning. Sears is another one. The very beginning of chain stores. We got 5 and dime, not dollar stores. We got 5 and dime stores beginning. If you can't come to the store in the big cities, you can buy a catalog or order a catalog to get all your products through the railroad. The very beginning of big media, all right, newspapers. And how do you sell a newspaper? Well, again, most people want the big stories, and they're advertising through what we call yellow journalism. Don't forget about that. It's going to be a test question later. Is you exaggerate the stories. Of course, if your story sounds better than the other newspapers, then people are going to buy your magazine, and that's what it all comes down to. So that's it for this section.